All right, Unit 3, Section 4, Part 2, Parallel versus Perpendicular. We've already talked about these terms a little bit. We did them in vocab. We've talked about them when we were proving lines are parallel. We talked about what parallel means. Okay, but use the slope to determine if two lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So let's talk about parallel first. Most of you will say that parallel lines will never touch or intersect. And that's good. But the one we really want to know is that parallel lines have the same slope. That's the important part. They have the same slope. Their m's are the same. If two lines have the same slope, then they're parallel. If two lines are parallel, then they have the same slope. And because they have the same slope, because they rise and run, they change at the same rate, they will never intersect. They will never touch. Here's the symbol for parallel. It looks like the L's in parallel. Okay? So you'd say like line L is parallel to line M, which we've already been doing. Now, perpendicular, you might say intersect at 90 degrees. And that is a result of the important part is that they have, perpendicular lines have negative reciprocals. Reciprocal, there we go. If I could actually say it, reciprocal slopes. Okay, by negative we mean opposite sign, and by reciprocal we mean flip the fraction over. Okay, that's what we mean by negative reciprocals. The symbol looks like an upside down capital T or a set of intersecting perpendicular lines. Okay. Now we also have the word negative reciprocals right here. I just defined it over there, but I'll do it again right here. Negative reciprocals, okay, means opposite sign and flip fraction over. Negative is the opposite sign. Flip fraction over is the word reciprocal. Be careful about negative. It doesn't mean just make it negative. Negative means you change the sign. So if it was negative, you turn it to positive. If it was positive, you turn it to negative. Okay? So let's look at some examples of negative reciprocals. The negative reciprocal of 3/4, well, it was positive, we got to make a negative, and then we flip it over. 4 on top, 3 on bottom. Now, whole numbers are tricky, but remember, you can always just throw in a 1 under there. It was positive, now it's going to be negative, 1 on top, 2 on bottom. Negative 7/8, and then we just have to flip it over, 8 over 7, and make it positive. 1 is 1 over 1, so it becomes 1 over 1, or just a negative 1. Whenever it's 1, it just changes sign. You can't really tell that it's been flipped over because it's a 1 on top and a 1 on bottom. Now 0, we can throw a 1 over there. We're going to flip it over and it becomes 1 over 0, which is actually undefined. So be careful with those. So your 0 slope and your undefined slope are opposite reciprocals, or the negative reciprocals. So if something has a 0 slope and an undefined slope, they are perpendicular. Okay? This next thing needs to go with the examples here. Use the slope to determine if lines A and B and C and D are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Parallel, let's remind you, same slope. Perpendicular, negative reciprocals. And if they don't have either same or negative reciprocals, then they're not perpendicular or parallel. They're neither. So we're going to do line AB and line CD. So we need to say AB's slope equals, we're going to do the slope monster. We need to do CD's slope equals, and we're going to do the slope monster. Let's plug in the parts. A, y on top, 3, x on bottom, -2. B, 6 on top, 2 on bottom. Let's do the math. 3 minus 6 is -3. 2 minus -2 gets more negative, -4. So that's a 3/4 slope. So now we need to find CD's slope. This one is 3/4. Okay. CD, y on top, 0, x on bottom, -1. 3 on top, 3 on bottom. I like it when they're the same number. You can't mess up doing the y on top or the x on bottom. All right, 0 minus 3 is -3. And -1 minus 3 is get more negatives, -4. That becomes plus, just like this one did, and that means it's 3/4. They have the same slope, so they are parallel. Let's look at number 2. AB slope is, there's the monster. CD's slope is, and there's the monster. Y on top, x on bottom. Y on top, x on bottom. 2 minus 4 is -2. -5 plus makes it 2/5. CD, let's see, 8 on top. Y on top, x on bottom. Y on top, x on bottom. 8 minus 3 is going to be a 5. And 1 minus 3 is a -2. That's -5/2. It is a flip over. The signs are opposite. So that makes them perpendicular. I think it's supposed to be E-N. Yep. And if you need the symbols, parallel, perpendicular. Okay. Here's a couple of extras. Give it a pause. Find the slopes. See what they are. Come back. Check your answer. All right, let's check them out. AB, the slope is. CD, the slope is. Y on top, x on bottom. Y on top, x on bottom. 8 minus 6 is 2. 1 minus -2 makes more negative, gets -3. So that's -2/3. Didn't really need that. CD, y on top, x on bottom. Y on top, x on bottom. 2 minus 3 is -1. And -1 minus 3 gets more negative is -4. Bloop, bloop. Makes it 1/4. So these are neither. They don't have same or opposite reciprocals. Last one. AB. Slope is, let's see, 3, 2, y on top, x on bottom. 4, -1, y on top, x on bottom. 3 minus 4 is -1. Negative makes positive. 2 and 1 makes 3, so -1/3. CD. Slope monster. Y on top, x on bottom. Y on top, x on bottom. It's a 6, I promise. Let's see, 3 minus 6 is -3. Negative makes positive. That makes -1. Bloom, bloom. That makes 3/1. Also known as 3, but I like it as a fraction because now I can tell the 3's are in opposite spots, the 1's are in opposite spots. Those are reciprocals. One's positive, one's negative. Opposite reciprocals is perpendicular. Throw the symbol on there if you want to. And that's all it takes to determine if things are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Look at their slopes. If the slopes are the same, parallel. If they're opposite or negative reciprocals, the different signs, and they're flipped overs, they're perpendicular. If it's not those,